episode of Lockdown Learnings. To save ourselves from this COVID-19, all we have to do is wash our hands with soap and clean water. We are scrubbing our homes, hospitals, cities, containment areas. Practically the entire country is on an intensive sanitization mode. But have you thought of what happens to all this water, all this wastewater collected from homes and from hospitals? Where do you think that goes? Are we dumping all of these harmful chemicals into our precious water bodies? And most importantly, what if we run out of water, of good, clean water? Joining us today on Lockdown Learnings are two very important people who will tell us what happens to this water. Sangeeta Venkatesh is a scientist and a researcher from IISc Bengaluru who has spent 30 years in this field of WASH, waste, water, sanitization and hygiene. She was a sanitation consultant for Tamil Nadu Nagipatnam rehabilitation camp post-tsunami. She is now the lead corporate head for Eco Paradigm, of whom Mr. Pravinjit, my other guest, is the managing director. Both these people are unsung heroes who will probably give us the solution to our water problems. Sangeeta and Pravinjit, thank you very, very much for joining me on this episode of Lockdown Learnings. Sangeeta, first of all, you have dealt with waste, solid as well as water. Sangeeta, tell me, there's so much of waste that we are actually collecting now with PPE kits, with masks and gloves being just used, and of course the water, the wastewater. What are the challenges that you think we are facing in the post-COVID world?
It's just not the post-COVID world. Right from the beginning, it is very important that at the household level or any other level, institutional level, that we need to segregate waste. Right. And so that it can be processed and treated appropriately. Even before COVID, you had your sanitary waste, medical waste, and these are handled by human beings. And for that alone, and now it is even more dangerous because of the COVID situation. So we need to really keep in mind that our disposal is very scientific and it is done separately. Each category of waste has to be, segregated and disposed appropriately.
Pravinjit, you also told me earlier when I spoke to you that if we test wastewater coming from our sewage in general, if we test it, we will get an indication of whether a community is COVID positive or not. I find that extremely amazing, and that could be a breakthrough in treating communities.
Yeah, these are some research which have occurred in Sweden, US, and other countries that you could actually identify community on propagation of these diseases by analyzing the sewage. Well, that's a very good thing because then you get that early warnings immediately. And then you can sort of quarantine, seal down this area.
And while we talk about a lot of, Swachh Bharat campaign and, building of toilets and all of that is being talked about. But treating wastewater is something that we don't hear. People are not aware.
Yes. See, typically the wastewater is the mandate of the urban local body in India. Mm-hmm. And we have less than 20% being treated as of today. Yeah, and with this toilet build-up, it's mostly decentralized facilities with twin pit latrines and things like that. Mm-hmm. The offshoot of that is you have a lot of fecal sludge which is going to be generated in a couple of years.
Right.
And a lot of urban local bodies are developing fecal sludge management solutions. Yeah? Right. But in the COVID context, it's slightly more interesting because the viral shedding occurs 2 days before the actual symptoms arise. And continue for 30 to 40 days after a person is declared cured. So which means he or she is a potential carrier much before you know anything, and he might continue to infect through excreta into through sewage. Okay, and what it means is with all the sewage treatment plant, your initial treatment is the step is the aeration step, which means you have aerosols being generated and virus can actually get dispersed in air. So the first person to suffer would be an STP operator and anybody who's passing around in the vicinity of a sewage, which is quite important in this coming, because this COVID is not going to die down quickly.
Right. And, so you have developed a system at Eco Paradigm.
Yeah, Eco Paradigm, we have developed a system called DTS long time back as of 2006. Onwards, and we have installed this in a few hospitals also, along with the residential things, and these have been working very successfully. Right. We have a large hospital in Bangalore which has been running for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Successfully conforming to the standards.
And you were telling me that it also doesn't need to be, monitored as such, and it is and no electricity to run it.
Yeah, that's the saving grace, because you don't need a daily attendance to operate the project, because it does not require, there's no motor or moving parts, and it's sort of you install it and it continues to work.
Right.
But operationally it is quite sturdy and reliable.
You have won an award, a national award for it.
So one of our projects which we installed for a lake pollution, that got the first prize in the 2018, the first National Water Award. Incidentally, about 10 years ago, in 2008, we got a special mention under the National Water Award from the President of India.
Congratulations for that, definitely. And you're saying this can be scaled from homes to,
yes,
it can be implemented for cities.
Can be implemented at any scale.
That is really incredible work, Mr. Pravinjit. Thank you very much for telling us about this system, and for the benefit of all of our viewers. This is Eco Paradigm. Mr. Pravinjit, thank you very much for spending time with us. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pravinjit. And we continue talking to Sangeeta Venkatesh. Tell me about, your journey. How did this happen to you?
Okay, this happened nearly, I think, in 2002 when I moved to suburban Bangalore, where we saw, I saw truckloads of waste being taken to a neighboring village. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was just not fair. You're putting your waste in your neighbor's backyard. So I thought, something must be done, because we were still not in the purview of the urban local body coming and collecting our waste. So we got an NGO, Wastewise, to come and help us out. And so at that time, I think my community was one of the first which started segregating waste and, giving it to this NGO, who were further treating it, scientifically, much long before, all this was mandated as a rule. Right. So thereafter, this really interested me and I got deeper into it. And so when the tsunami, hit in 2004, there was a colleague of mine who wanted some help in a village in Tamil Nadu. So, it was a good opportunity to explore this, how this can be applied in a rural setting. Okay. And that led me to even, ecological sanitation and so on and so forth.
Right. All of this is on a large community kind of we're talking about how to implement it on a large scale. But what about us sitting at home here? Because this is where it all begins, right? I mean, exactly. Cleanliness begins at home. And that's what we teach our kids and ourselves. Yes. So what can we do?
Cleanliness, we tell our children not to litter, put whatever, a piece of paper into the dustbin.
Right.
What happens after that? What happens to that trash when it goes into the dustbin is something even our generation doesn't know, because it is not being taught to us in schools.
Right.
And, we are fed in a lot of information and all that. And these are basic things which need to be inculcated. Children should be taught these things. So, well, I actually went on to do a research project on where I examined 25 schools across, government schools, private schools, residential schools, just to check what is being taught regarding waste management in the larger purview of environmental education.
I don't think anything at all.
Yes, out of the 25 random schools that I had picked, out of 5 in 5 states in the country, nothing was being taught. And there was a passing mention of kachra, in these government schools. It's just not enough. Yes. Right. So single-use plastics are being used rampantly. It is not being, it's all flying around. So what you do, you need to kind of educate these children at that level. That's what led me on to the next thing, which was, actually write about it. So I have a book, if I can show it on the
yes, please.
screen. It's called The Waste Issue. So it's in English for now.
Yeah.
And but it's a very comprehensive kind of an education, literally from the history of waste to the, the chain of how the waste goes, and, the concept of landfills and how we are running short of land. If we are just not going to segregate waste and not treat it properly, and what are the other outcomes? So all that in a very fun way with, activities and stories, and actually to make children think.
Really?
So there are stories where there is no definitive answer for
Wow.
So each child may come up with a solution on their own. So it was just to trigger that thinking capability in children that we also along with facts. Now,
Right.
the government has a solid waste management guidelines of 2016. How
Right.
many people know it? It's a good tool, not just for children. It's also a good tool for adults who want to know more about, the science behind solid waste management.
I think it's very, very important. Very important. We have now begun on a very basic scale of, first of all, showing our gratitude. And I think we definitely need to take it forward and make our children aware.
Actually, the least we can do is to segregate, thinking about your, sanitation workers. The least you can do is, wrap your, diapers, sanitary napkins or whatever, your band-aids and dispose it properly so that, because see, even before COVID, we had other diseases, and which are, in fact, diarrhea is one of number one. Killer. So what happens if you don't dispose your waste properly? It's going into your water systems. So what happens? You're consuming that. We are told to wash hands. Where is the water coming? So so we need to be extremely cognizant and conscious about all that.
Absolutely. Other than that, you also introduced me to bioenzymes, and I was completely floored by that. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about it? I think we should have another entire episode only on bioenzymes. But
so in the book itself, when we were planning what to do, one is composting. Of course, we have given the procedure how to do composting. But many schools, for instance, may not have the place to compost or whatever. So this thing about bioenzyme is that anybody can do it. So what do you need? You just need some fruit or vegetable peels. So we've kept it simple. We've kept it as citrus peels. You need some jaggery. You need some water. And by fermenting that over a few months, training it, you have a ready-made cleaner at home. There are always more good microbes than bad microbes. So when there are more good microbes, they always suppress the pathogens, in this competition. When you're using your chemical cleaners, what we do is we are wiping out even the good microbes. But in this whole thing, the pathogens are very sturdy, and so they rise
continue
up.
to thrive.
Exactly. So and then they start to infect, and so therefore the diseases, their strength becomes more than the good microbes. So what happens when you use, this is what happens when you use chemical cleaners. So by using bioenzymes, what you're doing is you're going to maintain that happy balance. And also at the same time clean your spaces, and your living spaces are actually alive and thriving, and they don't become dead, so you can use it for your floor cleaning, for your toilets, for anything. Actually, many people even use it on themselves, like a shampoo or whatever, depending on, in combination with soap nut. So the combinations and permutations are many. So, I have this blog where people can go and read more about it. Also,
definitely.
You can put it in the link perhaps.
Definitely, we'll add the link. Also, Sangeeta is a travel blogger, and there are many amazing things that she writes on them, and many interesting and amazing places to visit in India. Sangeeta, it was a pleasure talking to you, and I will definitely want to have another entire session on bioenzymes if it's possible sometime. Thank you very much for enlightening us today. Waste is something that we have to take seriously and not just discard. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Lakshmi, for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.